Yeah, so this is as hard as this thing will ever be to fly, and it's not that hard.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back once we have normal law on.
Right,
too.
yeah.
I think we might still be the only dual pilot or dual control electric aircraft currently, because we really believe in pilot training and being able to sit next to somebody and train them.
But before getting to learn how to fly it, I had the unique opportunity to ride along Chase for an early test flight in the program to see a third-person perspective of how this airplane flies.
Nice day for some testing. So right now we're flying the airplane with no control laws augmenting anything. It's a fly-by-wire system. We'll talk about that this afternoon. After this, we'll get into more of the fun stuff. I think it's slow flight next.
Direct flaw definitely makes this more difficult. Stable.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this thing flies. I'm going to get to see test flying. I'm going to go through their training program. This is a multi-part series covering several production trips. I met Beta on the road show. This trip had a highlight for me, which was being on board this airplane over the Grand Canyon. It's so beautiful to look outside, and then it wasn't lost on me how significant a moment it was to be in an all-electric aircraft flying over the Grand Canyon.
That has got to be a cool shot, though. Holy crap.
It's gotta be sick.
Dude.
So this is CX300 is the name of this airplane. So it's a CTOL version of what is our end goal of a VTOL aircraft.
During the initial visit to the facility, we started off with training in the sim to learn about the systems and the fly-by-wire control setup, and then transitioned to the actual aircraft.
It really has good roll authority. That is cool.
And yeah, my feet are not on the pedals because the yaw is in the stick.
Yeah, so that's going to be the threat here today, right, is PIO.
I don't get any feedback from your stick to my stick, so I can't feel what you're doing. So as I'm teaching you through these landings and takeoffs and stuff, it's all verbal coaching.
Yep.
And I won't be coming on top to add things. So it's 100% you on the controls until I say that I've got the airplane.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, Nate trusted me to jump into the left seat and land it twice. And I appreciate being selected to tell this story from the general aviation pilot's perspective. Yeah, from where I'm standing, this looks like definitely where it's going. I love aviation in terms of old school warbirds. That's what I fly. I fly an RV-14 with a Lycoming engine that's basically 1940s tech. So I'm still an old school pilot and I love pistons, but I also see what's happening here with electric aircraft, and I know ultimately at the end of the day, this is practical and it's only going to get better. And the fact that it's already where it's at is pretty impressive. So Jerry from Beta Aircraft has been bugging me for, I want to say, more than a year, possibly 2 years, to come out here and see what they're doing. I've been following the story.
How's it going?
What's up?
But what they're doing here is pretty awesome.
How are you?
Right on, welcome to Canada.
This is a pretty scenic arrival.
And I got invited to get behind the curtain. If it wasn't a crappy January day with a risk of icing, I definitely would have flown the RV-14 down for this trip.
Rocket Juliet Tower, roger, and there will be an amendment to your SIS. Let me know when you're ready to copy.
Will advise, 150 Rocket Juliet. And she's making you work.
Bravo Tango Tower, unable to touch and go to wake turbulence.
Good practice.
What is the intentions?
Right on the waterfront, pretty rad. That's like landing on a carrier. Did you feel that way? Yeah. Final's clear. Navy final is clear. That's Air Force final, that's Navy final.
Since basically everyone that works at Beta is a pilot, it wasn't an issue to get me a ride, and you'll notice that I've included all of the qualifications under each person's name as they appear on screen. So the guys picked me up in an SR-22, and on day one it was immediately meeting Kyle, barely had time to get the cameras ready.
Before we start, can I tell you something?
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, likewise,
I met you at Osh.
I came up to you at Oshkosh and you were like Jay-Z at a hip hop concert. Everybody was like, ah! So anyway, you don't remember me. It doesn't matter.
Because I met you at IAC when you came by the airplane, right?
All right, yeah, cool. I have two things for you.
Okay.
This is a handmade custom Beta flight bag, and in it is this little book, and it's a book of the Beta values.
Okay.
And I think that there's a few that you'll really like. And the one that's right towards the back here, because they go in order of importance, fly what we build. And this is why we have a culture of aviation here. And I believe that every single engineer, technician, salesperson, supply chain person should all know how to fly the airplanes that we design and build here.
So Nate, the pilot of the helicopter to bring us over, is also the chase pilot, was flying with NVGs to get us across to where the test flight was happening. We briefed pre-dawn,
to launch at dawn. Like we were taxiing out while the sun was rising to see a test flight happen.
Okay, this is morning briefing before test flight.
This is flight T0029. We're doing a low-speed envelope expansion. Roll call, posit. I'm control, propulsion, battery, low voltage, flight controls, structures, mobile.
Yep.
Okay, chase, and then video.
Every test flight gets this level of attention to detail, but it's worth noting this was very early in the program. I think it was the 5th hour on the airframe.
Okay, while we're talking about winds, I was thinking more about crosswind limits last night. My proposal to the group here is I think 15 knots we should cap as our crosswind limit to include gusts in the last 5 minutes, I think, for the time being.
Okay.
I think if you have less than 15 knots in the last 5 minutes, then I think you're safe from a crosswind perspective.
This briefing was about a half an hour long, and before each flight, they set up scenarios to stay sharp on how to handle emergencies.
You shouldn't have to worry about temp limits to make your pattern and land.
Especially today, but let's be real clear. If we're on half of a motor and I'm at 300 degrees and I need it, I'm going to melt it.
Yeah, sure.
Just so we're all clear.
Yeah. No, I just be aware that it's going to melt.
That's a post-landing limit, whether I busted it or not. I'm gonna
we just want to
use it all the way into the crash if I need it.
That's just as high as we've demonstrated that you can continue to get power out of it and not melt things down.
Understood.
After the briefing, the team broke out into their various stations. There's an extensive control room that I didn't get to spend much time in because I followed Posit to do the walk around and found myself quickly boarding the A-Star after that.
This is flight test. So this is a flight test boom, alpha gauge, beta gauge, and a pitot-static system that's out of the flow fields. I'm ready, yeah. The walk around here is not a lot to do because it's a very simple airplane, not a lot moves.
So let's get on board Chase with Doobie and launch for the test flight.
So you want to just talk through the fact that this has started now, and as of now, we are looking for a piece to fall off that thing, or what?
Exactly. Yeah. So our primary purpose here for flight test Chase is, safety. So anything we can do to offload his workload. So we're doing all the radio calls for him for CTAF, making sure we're staying clear of traffic, and then keeping a really close visual of the airplane itself. We know a lot about it, but we're looking for as we make modifications, we're making sure stuff doesn't fall off, and then. And if anything does go wrong, we're a set of eyes that can see what's happening. If the aileron failed, and kind of give them a second set of eyes for weather.
And then we got a whole bunch of eyes in control room looking at other telemetry remotely.
So they're looking at thousands of parameters coming live off the plane, all kinds of temps and pressures of just about everything that we can monitor on the plane. And piece of it too is we don't know exactly. We have a defined list of things that we want to monitor as a pilot, but we monitor way more than that currently so that we can build out a robust CAS system and make sure we're alerting the pilots of the things that are actually critical and we're not alerting them things that they don't need to worry about.
And I want to make it super clear that this video is not being paid for by Beta. They just invited me because they knew that I love aviation and telling aviation related stories. But no doubt projects like this are expensive to produce, so I do appreciate ongoing support from sponsors like SiriusXM. You can see the GDL52 receiver on the dash of the A-Star, so it was cool to see Beta using it, and I also enjoy the added situational awareness of SiriusXM Aviation data on board the RV-14.
And then the only fundamental difference between this and our vertical takeoff and landing version is the booms. The booms obviously stop at the wing here versus the VTOL version, which we'll see in the other hangar. They extend forward to be able to mount those 4 lift motors on top.
So this right here, this is a really neat airplane. This is actually the first and still the only full-scale electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that has performed full transitions with a crew on board. So I was lucky enough to be one of the pilots that has flown this through full transitions. And it's just like a magical feeling to take off like a helicopter, accelerate for about 30 seconds, shut the rotors down, everything goes quiet, and now you're just pushing through the air with an electric motor way behind you. And on the other side, you bring it down near stall, near the ground, which is something you should never do, unless you've got a beautiful top deck that you turn on and you hover down to a landing. It's a pretty magical feeling.
Doesn't look like any traffic in the area. The pattern should be all ours. Sweet.
Before we see Posit's takeoff, he wanted me to clarify some additional context to explain that this is an early build of the software, so there are some expected CAS messages, so I figured showing my first left seat takeoff was the best way to explain it.
Here we go. The power is set in the D10 but not past it. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm looking for 30, and then feet are coming off the pedals. That's it, eh? Feet are off the pedals.
Now you're on the wrist.
Oh, so weird. Okay, no
Feet are off
takeoff.
the
We're
pedals.
continuing.
Yep, continuing. Power looks good. Temps look great.
Future episodes in this series will share this training in detail, but we didn't want to gloss over these CAS messages being disregarded. So back on board to chase posit for the test flight. It's worth noting that the CTOL version of this airframe is clearly not a STOL aircraft, so it does have a fairly long takeoff roll.
No takeoff expected.
Continue.
Proceed off expected.
Continue.
And if you stick around to the end, you'll see that it also lands quite fast, but that's understandable because it doesn't have flaps, and the ultimate goal is to have this airframe be a VTOL platform.
Goes up. Up he goes.
Coming in for panel check.
Panel checks, after he takes off, we'll just kind of get in nice and close, make sure everything looks normal.
This test flight was non-stop interesting, and I did my best to tighten it up and cut it down for YouTube.
Coming up over the top. Try not to go right behind him in case anything comes off. It doesn't hit us.
If you're interested in seeing everything, there's a long version available to Patreon supporters.
And it'll come down underneath him. Belly looks good. Nose wheel looks good.
Clean and drive good. Testing. Brian, if you don't have a good shot out of this, I don't know what to tell you. It is gorgeous up here. Leveling.
Yeah, that is cool. I'm gonna get a shot with my phone.
Yeah, I'll close it in closer. Off his right side. So we're getting the testing now. First test point.
You are cleared to maneuver card 1 point.
Here's an example of one of the test cards we're going to fly, but before we get into that nerdy stuff, I wanted to share 4 minutes of unfiltered aviator-to-aviator enthusiasm from Kyle. The fact that he doesn't even pause makes it super clear this is his true, authentic thought process.
Let me just show you a couple neat things while we're here, because I love your show.
This is a great shot. It's so beautifully lit.
When I bought a Beaver, what did I do? I went and watched all your lessons in Beavers, right? And you learn all these little nuances, and you watch the little things. This airplane, just a couple little things that I think someone will take away at some point if they get to fly these things. There's so many embedded aerodynamic principles here that you wouldn't otherwise know. Laminar flow wing, it's 50-foot wing, super smooth. You see it's got a dihedral and an antihedral for spin resistance and stability. Very low center of gravity. And then these longitudinal booms are actually droopy, so they have a little bit of a cant to them like this, which matches the entrained flow over the wing. And the tail is offset away from the rotors, so you get really clean air. That helicopter right there, by the way, that's one of the people that's out here training as beta. And we've got a fleet of these small helicopters, a bunch of little electric pipistrel airplanes, Cessnas. We got 400 people in flight school here, which is awesome, because they all want to fly this thing. So you look at all these aerodynamics here, and you say, how do you get to a high lift over drag ratio with something that you're dragging around these propellers? Everything from the angle of that propeller, they're actually canted, let's say, toe in on the front, toe out on the back, because that's the way you get the wake to sucker punch the rear rotor and miss the tail, so you have a low tail volume coefficient. All of these angles in here are a structural aerodynamic compromise, right? Okay. Big drag condition can happen with the wrong upsweep drag underneath the back of the plane. So that's very carefully tuned to keep that flow attached. And then the rotor at the back, the motor with the propeller, actually does wake filling. So now it sucks the air down the boundary layer and accelerates it quickly, which has a much higher change of velocity or momentum to push the aircraft through the air efficiently. So you get another like 5% of efficiency by boundary layer ingestion and wake filling. So the fuselage wake is very minimized because the propeller's right at the rear. And you know that Burt Rutan's been trying to do this for years, and the only propeller aircraft around the world had a pusher on it. It's more efficient. However, turbine aircraft and reciprocating aircraft have to aspirate and they need to cool themselves. Guess what electric motors don't have to do? Barely have a wince of cooling and no aspiration. So it's the first time that we've been able to get really high aerodynamic efficiency, propulsive efficiency, if you want to account for it that way, by putting the propeller way at the back. So people are like, what's that funny looking airplane? a big portion of this, it's enabled by electric, and people have wanted to do this with turbines and recips.
And I like that it's symmetrical, so like the folded up props they're a mirror image, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but here's another couple fun things. When you're flying a plane with a good tail on it, has control harmony. Your roll, your pitch, and your yaw are all kind of in harmony, right? You just don't want to stick it stiff this way and loose this way. Same thing's true when you're in vertical flight. So if you look at those like toe in a little bit, this is a clockwise rotor, it's counterclockwise rotor. Clockwise rotor elicits a counterclockwise response of the body, right? Now that one's actually tilted inward and tilted downward, which augments the yaw to create control harmony between the proportional gain that you have on the roll and the pitch. So now if you're flying like a helicopter, you want similar, if not the same type of control authority as you roll, pitch, and yaw. And those little angles, 3 degrees in this case, actually create that horizontal component of thrust that makes it have control harmony. So there's this great saying, I think it was by Kelly of Skunkworks, where he said, if it looks beautiful, it'll fly the same. It doesn't just apply to wings and bodies. Actually, all of these little angles that are incorporated into the propeller, the control system, and the booms also subscribe to that thesis. And people are like, oh, I kind of like the way it looks natural. Well, it's in a natural world, so why wouldn't it look natural? You know what I mean?
Wrap 3.
What Posit's doing there is he's indicating what he's going to do and then a countdown, but he only says the 3 out loud, so you're not going to hear him say 2, 1.
This is where he does small inputs and basically watches what the airframe does. So he just did a quarter stick right really quick, like you're getting a gust. He gets does a yaw input, a little Dutch roll response. Another yaw input.
Test control, good data for 2.6, set up for 2.7, 90 knots.
There was lots of steady state flying box patterns to calibrate various systems, and it was also really cool to see just how precise they were being in terms of speed, altitude, and headings.
Test control, that leg is complete. You're cleared to turn either left or right, 90.
Go west.
And test new target airspeed's going to be 89 plus or minus 1 on the tolerance.
89, not 90.
A-firm, you were pretty much stable at 89 the whole time.
Copy. Test was showing that no slower than 90 there on that, so it's probably a mismatch between our two systems.
So these are our first times flying at all these airspeeds, to through envelope expansion. So do a quick spot check to make sure there's nothing really egregious before we try to really get into bigger banks. And after this, we'll get into more of the fun stuff. I think it's slow flight next. I think we're doing this at 85, then we'll go down to 80 knots to make sure slow flight feels okay.
It was absolutely freezing this week, and one of the cool things about this company is that they're doing the testing in Vermont, not the desert, which has its advantages for the diversity of weather and conditions that they design and test for, but there's no cabin heat installed yet, so Posit was definitely freezing.
So this one he's doing a half pull up, half push down, and then neutral force, and then if it's a inherently stable airplane, it will stabilize back on altitude and airspeed that he was at, or at least won't diverge.
Right. One of the test cards is to stall, right?
We might get to stalls this flight. They'll definitely be doing stalls later today.
In test control, you are cleared for rudder doublets, quarter displacement.
Test rudder in 3.
So being that close to the test flight aircraft, I could see control surfaces moving, I could see how the airframe was performing. I thought it was pretty interesting to watch when he was doing slip tests, and then when he let go, you would see the aircraft kind of resonate back to stable flight.
Slightly undamped, very rolly, and we're back into the feedback.
This one he's doing 30 degrees to the left, and then it's a half input to the right, time to bank 30 degrees to the right, and then he releases at 30
rolling
degrees
right
to the
in 3.
And if it's roll stable, it should generally go back towards neutral, or at least
conditions ready to roll left.
Clear maneuver.
stabilize.
Rolling left in 3. Point complete.
Control copies. Good data. You are set up for full displacement to the right.
Control test, that was my bad, that was full displacement.
Obviously, Posit's feeling pretty comfortable in the airplane. Next up, slips.
This one, steady heading side slip, is testing basically your ability to control the aircraft in a slip. And they're monitoring structures to make sure that not over expected strains on the tail and the whole empennage. Just kind of validates that we can go do crosswind landings without aerodynamic or structural concerns.
For traffic, Embraer Regional Jet.
So they have sensors on board that are noticing torque.
Yeah.
Plattsburgh.
Stable.
So you got full rudder put there.
Yep.
Plattsburgh traffic 916 Lima Fox is a flight of 2 overhead the field 5,000, working 5,000 to 7,000, orbiting Plattsburgh.
Continue to left half.
Test.
When he's coming out of the slip, is he just like let go?
Yeah,
Okay, it's fine. It's like,
it seems like it, yeah.
It's
I think he's doing that just because he's curious
to see
about
what
the
airplane
response.
does.
Yeah.
Stable.
So right now too,
Full left.
we're flying the airplane with no control laws augmenting anything.
Stable.
But we're trying to understand the true, flying qualities of the aircraft, and we don't want our control laws getting in the way. That will eventually be on the type certain lane to make it fly much more stable.
But it seems pretty stable.
Complete. Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an inherently stable design, but intentionally, it's a cargo logistics connector. It doesn't need to be snappy aerobatic, so make it nice
Nothing
and stable.
super objectionable. You can start to hear the wind noise for the first time really at the 83 bottom end of that tolerance band. Nothing really critical in terms of flight controls, no reversals. Felt like the ailerons had a lot more authority than the rudder at this speed, which is unsurprising.
Any asymmetries noticed between left and right?
Nope.
Current winds is reported by ASOS 310, gust 16.
Test.
That checks with the weather station as well.
So you're just keeping a close eye on the landing conditions?
Yeah, exactly. Our design says we can go up to 20 knots for crosswind capability, is what we're targeting. Again, everything works on CAD. Yeah. And for cert, we got to be able to get there with pilot of average skill, strength, and ability. Yeah.
Continue to full.
Test.
So again, I thought this whole flight was really interesting, but I spent a lot of time tightening it up and trimming it down.
Stable.
Test point complete.
And definitely the slip and skid tests I thought was pretty cool to see from this perspective.
Stable.
Now these are wings level
Continue
skids,
left
kind of
half.
test the same thing.
Test.
Continue full left.
Test.
Another part of the test in general is we try to stay within the glide cone of Plattsburgh. We're using like 12 to 1-ish for a very conservative glide. We're probably more like 16.
In test control, we got about 40 kilowatt hours of playtime remaining.
Test. Should be able to run through all of this.
I'm impressed with how long this is. Like, we started rolling cameras 55 minutes ago.
You can set up for left.
Got a lot of battery in there.
Amazing.
Correction.
Plane's
right.
super efficient too.
Test going right.
I think it feels longer when you're
Very,
staying
very
in the
light
exact same
rumble
spot
just
too,
started.
doing circles.
But I'm stable at 20.
Not getting anywhere.
Control.
Rumble went away as soon as my controls centered, and I'm just on the aft stick with a little bit of outside pressure. So I think the drag killed that buffet.
In test control, that's point complete. I don't want to go any farther until we do stall testing. If you want to jump right into slow flight maneuvering, do you want to start from 90 and work your way up in 5-9 increments?
April.
Test control, start at 90 degrees, or correction, 90 knots, and
I'll bank to 90 if you'll let me.
Slow flight testing went smoothly, and then I was impressed to see how fast that airplane could accelerate.
And in terms of speed, there was a point where we had a hard time in the A-Star keeping up with the aircraft, and once the gap got developed, we were going like 140 indicated in the A-Star trying to catch up. And I was like, is that how fast it's going? But I just realized, no, he's just trying to close the gap because that gap got created during one point in the program where he was holding a certain heading, and we couldn't use geometry to try to catch up. So this aircraft is moving fast, and it's pretty neat to see what it's going to be capable of.
So he had it up like 140 knots there?
Yeah, I think I got behind 10. He was accelerated. I think he went to 115.
Oh, you're trying to catch up?
Yeah. Right, okay. So obviously to take this thing on the road, we got to get really good numbers on cruise performance so we can validate our performance planning, which we're making the tables for as we speak.
So what are you expecting for range?
So the The goal eventually is 300 miles on this airframe. The full envelope's 153 VME. I think we've expanded up to 117, they said today. The goal before we go on the road with it is 130. Make sure 130 is good.
Timer started.
Above 130, we're pretty confident we're going to want some control augmentation because the controls just get really sensitive. Right. They're just so much more responsive, and there's no stick feedback. It's a fly-by-wire control.
So you could get to oscillated.
So it's really easy to over-control it because you don't get that like physical force feedback on your controls.
Right.
Direct loss definitely makes this more difficult. Stable.
This mode we're flying in right now will be our reversionary mode. If you lose any of the inputs you need for the control laws, it'll just default to this, which obviously we're showing
control,
pretty stable, pretty controllable for a backup.
We'd like to see 110 knots perf. If we can get that as you're making your way inbound, that would be perfect.
It accelerates pretty good, eh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's finally getting better performance than I have in the A-Star, or about equivalent, which is saying a lot.
Test control, good data. RTB, winds currently 290 at 10 gusting 17.
Test copy.
Buster traffic, 916 Lima Fox, flight at 2 miles southeast of the field, descending at a 4,000. Going to be landing runway 35, Buster.
Test control, you do have go around power if you need it.
Test. Question is whether I have go around warm.
Test control, the Bravo intersection weather station is currently calling 310 between 18 and 19.
Test.
Ruby, you want camera requests for this landing, or you want to just do it in the...
I'd say just get what you can.
Okay.
Oh. You're welcome to give them to me, I may not listen.
Yeah.
It definitely, like, as best you can, record it, because it might be good for the debrief. I'm going to generally trail behind him to watch his crab angle more than normal.
Okay, we're going to set the overshoot.
Classic traffic 6 Lima Fox is short final runway 35 for the option cluster.
Seems touch on the fast side, but probably what you want for the crosswind.
Pretty bumpy.
That's got to be weird, but no feedback, eh?
Yeah.
Damn.
Nicely done.
Nice job. Wow, that was like a one-wheel landing. Perfect.
Keep it on the runway.
A little bit of wobbling rudder.
Good work.
So next up in this series, we'll get into the training, and if you have any questions about flying this airplane, please throw them in the comments and I'll try to address them in the upcoming episode edits because there's a lot to fit in, so I'm happy to make it answer your questions. So until the next one, keep your flight chops sharp.
You're the best.
Oh my god, really?
It was -16.
Well, you got it on the ground.
It's always better to be lucky than good.
Oh, come on.
It's not the limit, but it's pretty close, whatever that was.
Really?
In terms of the gust. On the other hand, I'm more confident than ever. Low speed handling qualities are great.
Really?
Oh yeah. No buffet, like to
Better
speak
than
of.
POC?
Way better.
Really?
So much better.